He thought money made him untouchable until the woman he blinded quietly dismantled his empire from inside his own house. Pull up a seat. Welcome to Afromoral Tales, where morals shake hands with mischief, lessons sneak in, and every tale bites gently. Before we begin, if you love stories that make you think and smile, tap that subscribe button and join our circle. It's free, and it helps us keep these tales alive. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels tonight. Now, let the story begin. Daniel Reed walked through the VIP exit of Murtala Muhammad International Airport like he owned the building. People recognized him immediately. A few whispered. One man nudged his friend and pointed. Daniel was on magazine covers, tech interviews, investment panels. He was the face of young African wealth. His black SUV was not at the front. Daniel stopped walking. He checked his watch. His jaw tightened. His assistant stood 2 steps behind him, silent. 5 minutes passed. Daniel removed his sunglasses slowly. His eyes were sharp and impatient. Finally, the SUV pulled up fast. The driver jumped out, sweating. Sorry, sir. Traffic on The slap came before the sentence finished. Sharp. Loud. Heads turned. Airport security looked, then quickly looked away. The driver held his cheek. I don't pay you to explain traffic, Daniel said. His voice was calm. That made it worse. If you can't manage time, I'll replace you. Yes, sir. The driver opened the door. Daniel entered the back seat without another word. Inside the car, silence. His assistant pretended to type on a tablet. Outside, Lagos moved as usual. Buses, street sellers, corporate billboards, construction cranes. Daniel stared out the window. Everything in the city was connected to him in some way. His fintech company processed payments for major supermarkets. His investment firm funded 2 real estate projects in Lekki. He had just returned from Dubai after closing a partnership deal. Success followed him. Respect followed him. Fear followed him too. His phone buzzed. A news notification. Daniel Reed returns after closing international expansion deal. He smirked slightly. His mother had called twice during the flight. He ignored it. Family conversations were always emotional. He preferred numbers, contracts, strategy. The car finally entered Ikoyi. Tall gates opened automatically as they reached his parents' mansion. The house was old money. Marble floors, private security, clean silence. The driver stepped out quickly and opened the door again. Daniel paused before exiting. Next time, he said quietly, you won't get a second chance. Yes, sir. Daniel stepped out. Inside the house, his mother hurried toward him with open arms. My son, welcome home. He hugged her lightly. His father stood behind her, watching, measuring. You look tired, his mother said. I'm fine. A housemaid appeared quietly from the hallway, carrying a tray of drinks. Young, slim, simple uniform. She kept her eyes low. Daniel barely noticed her, but in a few minutes he would. And this airport slap would not be the worst thing he would do that day. The housemaid stepped forward carefully. Her name was Grace Miller. She had started working in the Reed mansion 3 months ago after her mother fell ill. The job paid for hospital bills. She did not speak unless spoken to. She placed the tray gently on the glass table. Welcome back, sir, she said softly. Daniel sat down on the leather sofa. He loosened his cufflinks and reached for a glass without looking at it. He took one sip. He paused. His face changed. This is orange juice. Grace froze. Yes, sir. I drink pineapple. I'm sorry, sir. I was told. Before she could finish, Daniel stood up. He poured the juice slowly over her head. The cold liquid ran down her hair, her face, her uniform. His mother gasped. Daniel. Grace did not move. The glass dropped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Is it difficult to follow simple instructions? Daniel asked. His voice was low but sharp. Or, is that too much for you? I'm sorry, sir, Grace whispered. His father stepped forward. That is enough. Daniel turned. It's a basic request. It is basic respect, his father replied. Silence filled the living room. Grace bent down immediately and began picking up the broken glass with trembling fingers. "Leave it," Mrs. Reed said gently. "Go clean yourself." Grace nodded and walked away quietly. Juice dripped behind her as she disappeared down the hallway. Daniel sat back down as if nothing serious had happened. "You are too soft," he said to his parents. "That's why staff take advantage." His father stared at him for a long moment. "Strength is not cruelty," he said calmly. Daniel picked up his phone instead of responding. He had emails waiting. Investors asking questions. Expansion plans in Ghana. He did not have time for lectures. Upstairs, Grace stood in the small staff bathroom. She washed her face slowly. Her hands were shaking. She had worked in other homes before. Some employers were strict. Some were cold. But this was different. This felt personal. She looked at herself in the mirror. Juice stains. Red eyes. Silent humiliation. She swallowed hard and returned to work. Back in the living room, Daniel's phone rang again. His mother answered hers at the same time. Her expression changed instantly. "Daniel," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Your father." Mr. Reed held his chest. His body leaned to one side. The room shifted from tension to panic in seconds. Daniel stood up quickly. "Call the doctor." Grace ran back into the room. For the first time, Daniel looked at her directly. Not with anger, but with urgency. And everything was about to get worse. Mr. Reed was rushed upstairs. The family doctor arrived within minutes. Grace stood near the hallway, unsure whether to stay or disappear. Daniel paced the living room, phone pressed to his ear. "Reschedule the board call," he said sharply. "I'm dealing with the situation." Upstairs, the doctor confirmed it was a mild cardiac episode. Not fatal, but serious. "He needs rest," the doctor said. "No stress." Daniel exhaled. For the first time that day, fear touched him. He stepped into his father's study to take a call from his Dubai partners. In his hand was the unsigned expansion contract. He had grabbed it in the rush without thinking. While speaking, he placed the document on the edge of a side table near the staircase. The call grew heated. Deadlines. Percentages. International pressure. Daniel ended the call abruptly and rushed back upstairs to check on his father. The document slipped from the table and landed near the bottom step. No one noticed. Later that evening, Grace returned to clean the living room. The house had grown quiet. She saw a few loose papers on the floor near the staircase. She picked them up. Typed pages. Numbers. Legal language. She assumed they were scrap printouts. She did not read them. She placed them inside a black trash bag with other waste papers and tied it closed. Hours later, Daniel came downstairs. His mind had returned to business. He reached for the document. The table was empty. He froze. He checked the sofa, the kitchen counter, his briefcase. Nothing. His breathing changed. He searched the study again. Then the hallway. Nothing. "Grace," he shouted. She rushed out from the staff corridor. "Yes, sir?" "There was a document here." "Where is it?" She hesitated. "I cleaned the area, sir. I saw some papers on the floor. I thought they were trash." His eyes darkened. "You thought?" "I'm sorry. I put them in the waste bag." Daniel walked past her quickly and tore open the trash bin in the kitchen. He pulled out the bag and ripped it open. The contract lay inside, slightly wrinkled but intact. His chest rose and fell. "That document," he said slowly, "is worth more than your entire life." "I didn't know, sir," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm sorry." Something snapped inside him. Before she could step back, Daniel's fist struck her face. Direct. Brutal. She collapsed instantly. The sound echoed through the kitchen. Mrs. Reed screamed from the hallway. Grace lay on the floor, blood near her eye. Daniel stood over her, breathing heavily. For a second, even he seemed shocked. But pride covered it. "Call the hospital," his mother shouted. Grace did not move. And this time, silence felt dangerous. Grace did not regain full awareness until the next morning. The hospital room was white and quiet. Machines beeped softly beside her. Her head felt heavy. One side of her face throbbed. She tried to open both eyes. Only one responded. The other was covered. Mrs. Reed sat beside her bed, holding her hand. Tears rolled down her face. The doctor stood at the foot of the bed. "The impact damaged the optic nerve," he said carefully. "We did what we could, but the vision in her left eye is gone. Permanent." The words stayed in the room. Grace did not cry. She stared at the ceiling with her one clear eye. Her life had changed in 1 second. Outside the room, Daniel stood near the corridor window. He looked calm, almost bored. His father approached him slowly. "You blinded her," Mr. Reed said. Daniel kept his voice steady. "It was an accident." "No," his father replied. "It was your temper." Daniel said nothing. Mr. Reed's face hardened. "You will marry her." Daniel turned sharply. "That's ridiculous." "You will marry her," his father repeated, "or you will lose everything that carries my name." Daniel laughed once. Short. Disbelieving. "You can't be serious." "I built the foundation your company stands on," his father said. "Your investors trust you because of my reputation. I can remove that support in one phone call." Silence stretched between them. "You assaulted a woman in my house," his father continued. "You destroyed her future. You will take responsibility." Daniel's jaw tightened. "And if I refuse?" "Then you walk away with nothing. No shares, no board control, no inheritance." Daniel understood power, and he knew his father meant it. Days later, the media was kept quiet. Money handled that. A private civil ceremony was arranged quickly. Grace was discharged from the hospital with a white bandage covering her damaged eye. She signed the marriage documents with a steady hand. No smile, no protest. Now she was Grace Reed. Daniel did not look at her during the ceremony. There were no vows, no celebration, only legal obligation. That evening, she entered the Banana Island mansion as his wife. He walked ahead of her without speaking. Inside the house, he turned to her. "Do not mistake this for love," he said. "This is business." Grace looked at him calmly. Her voice was soft but firm. "Everything is business to you." Daniel walked away. He believed the marriage was punishment. He did not realize it was the beginning of his real loss. The first night in the Banana Island mansion was quiet. Daniel slept in the master bedroom. Grace was given a guest room at the end of the hallway. No welcome, no conversation. The next morning, Daniel called the house manager. "You're all dismissed," he said. The staff stared in shock, except the driver and security. Grace understood immediately. She was not brought into the house as a wife. She was brought in as replacement labor. From that day, she cooked, cleaned, washed, organized. Daniel treated her like furniture. He left early, returned late, brought women home without shame. Sometimes they asked her for water. Sometimes they assumed she was still the maid. Grace said nothing. She observed. At night, when the house was silent, she sat on the edge of her bed with her laptop open. She began to learn business law basics, corporate governance, shareholding structures, financial compliance regulations in Nigeria. She watched interviews Daniel once gave about leadership. She studied his language, his weaknesses. She noticed he reused passwords across devices. She noticed he left his tablet unlocked at home. She noticed his email notifications appeared on the shared smart screen in the living room. Grace stopped reacting emotionally. She stopped confronting him. She stopped showing pain. Daniel mistook her silence for defeat. One evening, while cleaning his home office, she saw his laptop open. He had stepped into the shower. Emails were open. Attachments. Financial reports. She did not rush. She used her phone quietly. Photos. Screenshots. Transfer records. Offshore accounts. Irregular payments linked to a shell company. She did not fully understand everything yet, but she knew enough. Daniel returned. She was already wiping the desk calmly. He did not suspect her. Days turned into weeks. Grace built a private digital folder, encrypted, stored outside the house. Every document she found, she copied. She also started attending online webinars about whistleblower protection laws. She was no longer thinking like a victim. She was thinking like a strategist. One afternoon, Daniel looked at her while she served his coffee. "You've become very quiet," he said. She met his eyes steadily. "I'm learning." He smirked. "Learning what?" "How to be useful." Grace gave a small smile. "Yes," she replied. But her definition of useful had changed. She was not planning noise. She was planning impact. Daniel believed power was loud. Grace was discovering that real power moves silently. And she was just getting started. Grace did not rush. She understood something important. If she exposed Daniel too early, he would crush her. He had lawyers, media control, political contacts. So she waited. She continued cooking his meals, continued cleaning his office, continued acting invisible. Meanwhile, her digital folder grew. Bank transfers routed through Mauritius. Undisclosed equity arrangements. Payments labeled as consulting fees that matched government contract timelines. She did not need to understand every detail. She only needed proof of pattern. Late one night, Daniel left his tablet charging in the living room. A message notification flashed on the screen. Board audit. Internal review request. Grace read quickly. An international investor had raised compliance questions. Daniel had replied dismissively. He planned to manipulate the reporting numbers before the next quarterly review. That was the opening. Grace copied the entire email thread. Then she did something smarter. She created an anonymous email account. Not from the house network. Not from any device connected to Daniel. She used a public Wi-Fi location 2 days later. Simple message. No emotion. Just facts. Attachments included. She sent it to 3 people. A financial journalist known for exposing corporate fraud, one member of Daniel's board, and the compliance office of the investor firm. She did not send everything. Only enough to trigger investigation. Then she waited. 3 weeks later, Daniel was preparing for a major fintech conference in Lagos. Media would attend. Investors would attend. It was meant to announce his company's West African expansion. If this story made you think, smile, or remember something important, then you belong in the circle. Stay with us for part 2, because she is just getting started. Subscribe to Afromoral Tales and help us keep these stories alive. It's free, but it means everything. And before you go, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Let's see how far this circle reaches. Until the next tale, stay curious.